The Late Show interview between Prince Harry and Stephen Colbert began as a typical late-night appearance. Harry walked on stage with a polite smile, greeted the host, and sat down in front of a live audience that offered a respectful, if slightly muted, round of applause. The topic was meant to be Harry's latest media project, another documentary reflecting on his life post-royalty. Colbert welcomed him with his usual charm, but added a subtle jab when referring to Harry as "your royal Californianness." Harry responded with a forced laugh and replied that just Harry was fine, trying to maintain his composure. Colbert didn't waste time before shifting into more provocative territory. With a calm but pointed tone, he asked, "How many times can you tell the same story?" referring to Harry's repeated retellings of his departure from royal life. Harry appeared unsettled but kept his voice steady, insisting that it was important to share his truth. Colbert questioned that phrasing and followed up by asking if Harry's truth was different from the truth. The audience grew noticeably quiet as the interview took a sharp turn from promotion to confrontation. Harry began to bristle, sensing the interview wasn't going to be friendly. As the interview progressed, Colbert pressed harder. He pointed out the contradiction between Harry's claims of seeking privacy and his ongoing media presence. Harry defended himself by saying he was trying to control the narrative and correct public misconceptions. Colbert pushed back, noting that despite Harry's complaints about media intrusion, he had signed multi-million-dollar media deals and released deeply personal content. Harry grew visibly agitated, accusing the press, and by extension Colbert, of misunderstanding the psychological toll of his experience. Colbert acknowledged that trauma was valid, but questioned when healing would begin if grievances were never set aside. Harry's responses grew more defensive, and the discussion escalated. He claimed his family refused to acknowledge the harm they'd caused. Colbert asked directly whether public apologies were required for Harry to move on. When Harry responded that accountability was necessary, Colbert challenged the idea that healing depended entirely on others' actions. He shared that many people who face trauma manage to move forward without destroying relationships. Harry interrupted, insisting his situation was unique. The tension between them was mounting rapidly. Harry's hands clenched as he reiterated that he wasn't seeking revenge, just understanding, but his tone betrayed rising anger. Colbert continued pressing the inconsistencies. He questioned whether Harry had monetized his trauma by producing content focused on family disputes. Harry snapped, "How dare you suggest that?" Colbert responded without raising his voice, citing Harry's public deals and content as evidence. At that point, Harry stood abruptly, declaring the interview over. Colbert remained calm, inviting him to continue the conversation. Harry accused him of conducting a hit piece instead of an interview. Colbert replied that he was just asking questions, not offering scripted praise. The audience held its breath, watching the interaction unfold into something far more explosive than anticipated. As Harry's frustration spilled over, he turned on the audience, accusing them of mocking his pain. Colbert stepped in to defuse the moment, reminding Harry that laughter was a reaction to tension, not a sign of disrespect. Harry demanded to know how he was expected to handle this kind of treatment. Colbert replied that adults can have difficult conversations without shouting or storming off. Harry took offense, bringing up his family's past behavior, claiming they had failed him repeatedly. Colbert again asked for specifics, saying vague accusations had been used often, but rarely with evidence. Harry hesitated to answer directly. Colbert continued asking for one clear example of how Harry had been unsupported. Harry said his family hadn't defended him against the media. Colbert countered by asking if public statements were really the kind of support Harry wanted. He challenged the idea that families are required to issue press releases every time a relative is upset. Harry backtracked slightly, clarifying that he wanted emotional support. Colbert then listed major life choices Harry had made: military service, marriage, children, that were publicly celebrated. He asked which decision, specifically, had been opposed. Harry finally admitted it was his choice to leave royal duties altogether. Harry said his family hadn't made his departure easy. Colbert pointed out that logistical, legal, and security issues made such a move complex. He asked if Harry had ever clearly communicated his reasons, or had just expected his family to figure it out. Harry didn't reply. Colbert observed that Harry seemed more interested in being seen as a victim than as someone moving on. He said that publicly demonizing family might feel like justice, but it doesn't foster healing. Harry grew angrier, accusing Colbert of not understanding his background. Colbert replied that he didn't have to understand to see the pattern. Harry began pacing and slammed his fist on the desk, rattling nearby items. Colbert remained calm, but pointed out that such behavior contradicted Harry's message of healing and emotional growth. Harry shouted that Colbert was just another media figure exploiting his pain. Colbert responded that Harry had chosen to share personal family issues with the public. He asked whether it was fair to demand privacy while repeatedly airing private matters. Harry tried to claim ownership of his truth again, but Colbert questioned whether his wife and children also deserve privacy or would be dragged into public disputes. Harry exploded, warning Colbert to keep his family out of it. Colbert noted the irony of wanting protection for one side of the family while exposing the other. Harry again accused Colbert of twisting his words. Colbert said he was using Harry's own statements. He reminded Harry that he had repeatedly criticized his father and brother in public. Harry argued that he had no choice because of how they had treated him. Colbert challenged that, asking for specifics. When Harry remained vague, Colbert suggested Harry had never actually explained what his family did, only that they didn't understand him. Colbert's final challenge came when he suggested that Harry had confused being victimized with staying a victim. He said that real healing requires taking responsibility. Harry became increasingly hostile, accusing Colbert of exploiting his pain. Colbert clarified that he was simply asking questions no one else had dared to. The studio was silent as Harry began to lose control. He leaned forward, shouting that Colbert had no right to judge him. Colbert, still composed, said he was judging Harry's responses, not his experiences. He asked again whether Harry's path of public criticism truly aligned with the goals of healing. Harry's rage reached its peak when Colbert suggested he was turning trauma into a brand. Harry yelled, knocked items off the desk, and accused Colbert of being pathetic. Colbert asked him to calm down and have a real discussion. Harry refused, insisting that he was being ambushed. Colbert asked what Harry had really worked for, empathy or attention. Harry said he'd tried to build a better life. Colbert replied that revenge content wasn't healing. Harry leaned over the desk threateningly, but Colbert stayed calm and said Harry had confused righteousness with unresolved anger, surrounded by enablers unwilling to challenge him. Harry brought up his mother's death, saying his family failed her and was now failing him. Colbert said the car accident was a tragedy, not a conspiracy. Harry erupted, saying Colbert didn't understand how the royal institution treated Diana. Colbert pointed out that Harry now used the same media he blamed for his mother's downfall. Harry stammered, visibly conflicted. Colbert said Harry had become more comfortable being the hurt little boy than the responsible adult. Harry screamed at him to shut up. Colbert said being a victim doesn't exempt someone from accountability. Harry then swiped his arm, sending mugs crashing to the floor. Security began moving toward the stage, but Colbert signaled them to stay back. He calmly said Harry was having a tantrum. Harry barked back that this wasn't a tantrum. Colbert asked what else to call a 40-year-old man destroying a set because of difficult questions. Harry glared at him, trembling. Then in a low voice he said, "I hate you. I hate all of you." Colbert replied that the real tragedy was how much Harry hated himself. He added that until Harry addressed that internal conflict, no interview, book, or documentary would give him peace. The room remained frozen in stunned silence. Harry stood frozen for a moment, his face cracking, then hardening again. He tore off his mic and told Colbert he didn't know anything. Colbert agreed, saying he only knew what Harry had chosen to share, and that what he had shared made it look like Harry hadn't truly tried to understand his family. Harry turned, stormed off the stage, and barked at his security to follow. At the edge of the set, he turned back and shouted that people like Colbert would never understand people like him. Colbert answered quietly, "But you're the one sharing it all?" Harry didn't respond. The show cut to commercial. Colbert, still seated, looked into the camera with a sigh. He admitted that wasn't how the interview was meant to end. The audience sat in the stunned silence. Moments later, Colbert introduced the evening's musical guest, attempting to resume normal programming. But what had just happened would dominate headlines for days. The man who had positioned himself as a global voice for healing and mental health had unraveled on live television. His unwillingness to accept accountability or engage in honest dialogue had turned a conversation into an infamous spectacle and a reminder that pain, when weaponized, only deepens.